host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. We're going to kick things off with a bang here. First and foremost, I do want to go ahead and show you what we are going to discuss tonight before we bring in our guests. We have big news coming up this way, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we are discussing Candace Owens is named. This is a big story, ladies and gentlemen. This is in connection to the Nashville shooter. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss, I'm pretty sure you've heard by now, Trump deportations have begun, and it is craziness going on out here in these streets. We'll get into that story. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to discuss Kamala Harris is blaming Doug. What is this all about? We're also going to dive in. That's what our guests are here for. The Massachusetts reparations bill. You'll see there's a picture there of Governor Healey. We're going to get into all of that. And last but not least, this crazy story coming out of Harvard University, the Harvard anti-Semitism ruling and how that will impact anyone working at Harvard or anyone that attends Harvard. So we'll get into all of those stories, ladies and gentlemen. But first and foremost, I do want to get started with our panel. So one of the things we've been discussing on this show are things that we can accomplish on the local level. And tonight's guests are coming on to do just that. We've talked about reparations on the show multiple times, and we have seen, obviously, this is not happening on the national level. And some people are trying to make things happen through the state. So let's go ahead and bring them in here. Welcome. Hello.
Peace.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. How you doing?
Doing great. All I do is just ask everybody to mute unless you're speaking so we don't get a background noise. And we're going to go ahead and let everyone introduce themselves. And then we'll go ahead and jump right in. Let's start with BTP. Mr. Ali.
Hey, Sabby, how's everything? Okay,
Hey,
so I'm Ali from United Sons and Daughters of Freedman, as well as Be the Power, a co-founder and board member, as well as the director of history and research.
Awesome. Okay, Naeem.
Hey, how you doing, Sister Sabby Sabs? First, let me just say, follow you on Twitter /X. I always share your content. I'm definitely a fan of your work. My name is Naeem Wade. I am president and co-founder of United Sons and Daughters of Freedman. Also one of the co-founders of Be the Power, political education and advocacy group. And, we're here to have a discussion about the bill in Massachusetts and proper language and why, especially in today's politically charged times, having the proper legislation will ensure that we can get these programs up and running.
All right, sounds good. And Antonia.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. My name is Antonia Edwards. I am the co-founder of Solidarity and Community Engagement Group here in Boston. Also the Community Engagement Director for United Sons and Daughters. And I'm really happy to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you to all of you for coming on. So the first thing I want to dive into is United Sons and Daughters. I want to go ahead and bring this up on the screen here. This is United Sons, Daughters of Freedmen. I want to talk a little bit about this. And first and foremost, because we've heard different terms about this in reference to lineage. Some people said refer to ourselves as American descendants of slavery. Some people say refer to ourselves as freedmen. And I would like to hear from the panel the importance of referring to those of us who are descendants of slavery as freedmen and why that is important. And I'd like to hear a little bit about United Sons, Daughters of Freedmen.
Okay, I'll start then. The concept came in 2020 when we started to realize that the term freedman was still a viable term, but that it wasn't being used anymore because the Daughters of the Confederacy, who scripted the Lost Cause teachings, removed the word freedman because this term was a recognition of our humanity. And they continued in the literature to call us Negroes, Blacks, colors, etc. The names that allude to our slavery condition. So we felt that resurrecting this term for today's day and time would be a little more beneficial legally than some of the other acronyms and names that we have out there. And we were inspired in a way by the Daughters of the Confederacy, not in a good way, but to counter their narrative. And this is what we've been doing with our organization, United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. We are dedicated to ensuring that the broken promises of Reconstruction are fulfilled for today's American freedmen.
Okay, thank you so much for explaining that, because I think some people assume that reparations is based on race, and I continue to try to correct that when I hear it. It's important that it's based on lineage, you can't base it on race anyway, like that's not legal, and that would fail in the courts. So for people who are not aware of that, this is also why you'll hear people who are reparations activists explain that, like, even when you talk about reparations on the global level, legally, that would not hold up in the court in the United States. So thank you so much for diving into that. I want to get into this bill. So this is happening here in Massachusetts, where I am. It is an act establishing a Massachusetts Agency of Freedmen Affairs. This is Bill HD. 3879. I want to hear a little bit about this. I see that the presenter for this is Brandy Fluker Reed. How were you able to get this far? I think this is the big question that a lot of people have, because we want to do more through the states, but how were you able to get them to even create the bill to establish an Agency of Freedmen Affairs?
Well, so actually, I can answer that. Oh, you can go, Ali. I'm sorry.
You want to do it?
This has been a long process. We started this back in 2023. We submitted an original proposal, and that bill was H9 3921. That bill has been in study since April of 2024. It didn't die. They put it in study. And the reason why they put it in study is Senator Miranda has a bill 1053. There's a race-based bill. And so the Judicial Committee suggested this year that we combine our efforts and we come up with one bill. And the team and I have worked vigilantly for the last few months, working with the opposition side, which would be Miranda's bill, which is 1053, to get the race language out of the bill. And we've had like several meetings with them, and those meetings were stalled on January 3rd, where they refused to remove African descent. We got them to remove African American. However, they wanted to put people of African descent. And so as the team is so expertly explained to them, that's still race-based, and it has nothing to do with the legacy of slavery in Massachusetts, especially because Massachusetts sanctioned slavery in 1641. But not only that, in the United States. And so when you have this African descent, it opens it up for everybody. So as a result of it, we just resubmitted our bill. The brothers worked very hard to get the language down pat and created a masterpiece for this year's submission. And so I myself went back to Brandy. We all talked, and she submitted the bill for both the Office of Freedmen Affairs, which we're still waiting for that language to be critiqued, but for one specific part. Everything else is fine except for one thing they want to go through House Counsel with. But as far as the commission, it's just the same bill as last year. It's just the brothers crafted a better, more perfect language masterpiece. And so I've had a relationship with her for the last couple of years.
This is why it's important to know who your local representatives are, guys. This is what,
It is.
this is what I've been trying to tell people. Like, obviously, we don't have access to people. Most of us don't have access to people in Congress, and most of us don't have access to the president. But when it comes to some of these local representatives, I mean, there are town meetings, there are city meetings. I've gone to city council meetings before. I mean, these are things that you can attend. They're open to the public. So one of the things I do want to ask, and I'll pass it to you, Ali. In particular, I think a lot of people may not be aware that New England did have slavery. And I was kind of surprised that people didn't realize that. I think a lot of people think it was just the South. That's actually not true. Rhode Island was very heavily involved in the slave trade. And one of the products that they were involved with was rum. So a lot of people know Charleston, South Carolina, like they know the Carolinas and Georgia, but a lot of people don't realize that New England was also heavily involved in the slave trade. How would this bill work? Would this apply to people that were born in Massachusetts, or would it apply to all freedmen who are currently in Massachusetts? Like, how far back would this go?
That's a good question. The eligibility criteria is something that has to be worked out as well, right? We have some really good ideas on the eligibility criteria, but what I would like to see is for it to actually be inclusive of not only the people whose ancestry goes back to slavery, but also the people who may have come in later and had to experience the legacy of slavery in various forms that it came in, and still people of the American freedman class, not all Black people. And we're very, very particular and specific about that.
That's right. Because again, we moved around. I mean, we all have to remember the Great Migration. Like a lot of freedmen left the South and moved north. And then there's like this reversal going on where people are moving back south, but we moved around. I said the same thing about California. And that brings up another question, because I know this one is coming from people. We saw what happened in California. And at that point, Camilla has been on the show, and she was also on RBN as well, before they had the votes for the bill in the House. They already said that they had all these, politicians that agreed to sign on and said, yes, we support this. And it did sound very promising at the time. And then when it came time to bring the reparations bill in California to the floor for a vote, they decided not to do it. And I think people look at California as a model of, let's not try to do it that way again. Have you heard some of that type of pushback? And is there anything in place to try to prevent what happened in California to happen here in Massachusetts as well?
We haven't heard that kind of pushback because a lot of people are not really aware of what we're doing in Massachusetts. We try to stay under the radar because one of the problems that California experienced was, with their push being so public, they attracted a lot of negative attention from social media, particularly people on Twitter. Various groups on Twitter were involved in their process, particularly the public hearings and things, and it became a real crap show in a lot of ways. And so the work that we've been doing, we've been trying to stay under the radar. So we haven't been getting a lot of pushback from anybody because they don't really know what we're doing. We very intentional about that, not to keep people out of the process. The people in Massachusetts and the people in Boston, where we've been doing some work, they are very much aware of what we're doing. But outside of that, no. And everyone is very positive about the outcome so far. So now we haven't been getting that kind of pushback about not doing it. But the thing is, we do have people who are concerned about language. So a lot of the reparationists are more mature in the sense of they understand nowadays with people like Marcel pushing. Marcel is another person a lot of people don't know that came through our camp. He's from out of our crew, right? And so he understands this very well, and he carries the message. He's been a real strong proponent of carrying the message and letting people know that this thing can't be race-based, right? And so that's our thing. It's like we're really strong about that. And California had to fight that kind of issue on certain levels. At the same time, you know, you have a problem with the Democrats because the Democrats really don't want reparations to happen. They made that very clear the way they undermined their efforts at the last hour.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that multiple times. Oh, I think Antonia's back. There we go. Let me add her back.
Yes, thank you.
There we go.
Thank you.
No, I've seen that happen very much so, and I think that Maura Healey, I have noticed something with her. Maura Healey's our governor. For those who are not aware, Maura Healey, for whatever reason, all of a sudden this year has been moving forward with a lot of initiatives. I believe it was either last year or the year before that. She did specify the need for there to be some type of, I don't know if she wants to call it wealth closure here in Boston, in Massachusetts in particular. She did acknowledge that. Do you know how she would feel about reparations? Has anybody spoken to her?
I have never spoken to Governor Healey directly. I do know that this initiative was started years ago on the state level. And then it was just revisited again, just like what brought the city of Boston. The city of Boston has its own task force. And as a matter of fact, I've been appointed to the task force due to the great work that we've done here in Boston on the ground. So I think that because the city has been pushing the initiative for reparations, it's only appropriate for the state to do so too. But most of the people that are in the state house, the politicians, whether it be on the Senate or the House side, are really pushing for reparations. And how we know this is the last year when we had the hearing for reparations, it was in the protected class status committee, and the Judiciary Committee was very open and very knowledgeable about American freedmen. And so we had several meetings with that committee as well too. And we spoke with Senator Eldridge, who is the chair of the Judiciary Committee. So people in Boston very much know the status of American freedmen, the ones who make the decisions. And to answer your question with regards to California, from my perspective, we started off with American freedmen. We've never wavered. We've never African-American, Black, or people of color. We just don't use that verbiage. So we started off with American freedmen, and that's how we plan to end. And that's why I think we're getting the recognition with regards to the Office of Freedom Affairs. Brother Ali can tell you we've done great research. We have in Boston a commission on African-American studies that's overseen by the NAACP that's underutilized. And so we feel like those racial injustices that other people like Black immigrants are seeking justice for, they should take that to that particular commission. And so we're very specific on our lineage because they keep using the legacy of slavery or slave reparations. And when I'm out in public and I'm lobbying, I'm like, you can't use slave reparations and not pay homage and respect the original home party, which is our ancestors. And I make that perfectly clear. And because you're in Massachusetts as well too, we have a high number of Black immigrants or people who consider themselves to be Black. And for some reason, without having that specific language spoken in the public, everybody thinks it's all Black Lives Matter situation and they're entitled to reparations. And so the brothers and myself, we're very firm. And I have a co-founder too, Jonathan Bryan, here in Boston, very firm on educating people on our, we don't say lineage, I say heritage, on our heritage, because people, to be politically correct, have not done that. And so that's one of our biggest challenges. But never spoke to Governor Healey directly. I work directly with the mayor. I work in the State House. I have several contacts there. And also the Judiciary Committee, the actual chair, we've had meetings with. So we've been really working hard, and we solidified a lot of work. We've done a lot of workshops. We've done a lot of PowerPoint presentations to educate the politicians on what we really stand for. So I don't know. I do know this. I'm going to say this. Last year, when we were expecting to have the H3921 voted on, we were told that it kept getting pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. And they said they were working on the parentage bill. And so I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I was disappointed with that. And the parentage bill was to solidify taking fathers off the birth certificate and naming them other birth parents. And that was something that was really important to Governor Healey, and also a lot of the LGBT community that sat on the state legislators, whatever. And I just felt like you could have done both at the same time. So that was really disheartening to me as a constituent. But that was a primary bill at the witching hour last year. And we, instead of letting the bill die, because they could have, they just pushed it over. And then we were signaled to come up with one bill. And that's how we got into this relationship with the other people whom in which we've been sitting down with.
Right. And this is what oftentimes has happened. We've seen this happen in Congress as well. Like they will promote other issues and push bills or legislations that, like there's the HR 40 in Congress that's been there forever. They'll just push that to the side because it's not as important to them, but we can see them urgently pass bills for other groups. So this is something that I have been telling people about. Also, for those who are not aware as well, Massachusetts has one of the highest wealth inequalities in the United States. There was that study done by Dr. Darity, which hit the Boston Globe a couple years ago, and people were so shocked by this, except for I think us, but a lot of people were so shocked to find out that the average white family in Boston has over a net worth of over $250,000, and the average Black family had like $8, right? So when we talk about reparations, it's important that you, the audience, you understand that it's a debt that's owed. When you hear somebody refer to that as a handout, reparations is not a handout. There was a promise that was made by General Sherman for 40 acres and a mule. Apparently, they started to do that at some point, and then that was taken away. And so that has not been paid. So you're talking about descendants of slavery in this country that worked and were not paid. We're talking about unpaid labor. We're not just talking about that, though. We're talking about the redlining. We're talking about Jim Crow laws, all of these things that stopped us from generating some type of generational wealth in this country, which I think is incredibly important. And then there's also this bill as well. I want to go ahead and bring this one up, Bill HD.3865, an act to cure us of the liabilities that ultimately restricted equity. I want to hear a little bit about this one.
All right, I'll start with this one real briefly. This was originally the H3921 bill, and my team and I, particularly Brother Ali, we got together and we edited out a lot of what we would call the language that would trigger strict scrutiny. We removed certain words like race or racial, right outside of I believe that's the Racial Equity Commission that's mentioned in the bill. We removed anything that the other side, meaning Edward Bloom and his American Alliance for Equal Rights and other like groups, like the group that's suing the city of Evanston, Illinois, which has halted their reparations program. And ultimately, the courts are going to come back and rule that this is a form of discrimination because it is based on race. And so what we did was we took the information that we have been studying for the past 4 to 5 years and we crafted it in the language of this bill. And we removed any vestiges of race. One of the things that the courts have said just as recently as June of 2023 in the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard case, e.g. the affirmative action case, was that the government can plainly remedy a race-based harm that it has caused so long as it advances a colorblind constitution. And this means that any legislation or any programs that come out of any legislation must be narrowly tailored so that it can have a form of discrimination, if you will, but that's not based on race. And when you have, as you mentioned, Bostonians, Freedman in Boston worth only $8, this is part of what government, along with private citizens, did. So that's the gist of that bill. If Anthony and Ali want to add a little bit more to that.
I would just say this, when you read that bill, because the truth is there are two competing bills at this point. So you have the bill that we are showing, or that you just showed on the screen, that we crafted, and then there's another group that crafted a race-based bill. I believe that it was put in the chat by one of the members of the consortium that was involved with creating the bill. We were represented in that consortium as well. trying to get to a place where we can come to a consensus on presenting one bill. Like Sister Antonia said earlier, that didn't work out because the people who were members of that consortium, which included the NAACP, I think the Urban League, certain groups from out of Boston, the Boston area or the Massachusetts, the state, and even ADOS was a part of that consortium. They came 95% of the way towards where we were. We were able to convince them in a lot of it, but they didn't want to remove the last pieces of the race language in it. So it kind of like, we went our separate ways, right? And so we have our bill, they have their bill. Theirs is based on race. If you read it, you'll see a lot of race language in it, as opposed to ours, which is specifically based on the class of people that come up from slavery in the United States. So we're very, very particular about that. We made that clear to everybody as we were meeting, as Sister Antonia was meeting with them. She was really speaking for us, and we were sending messages like, listen, this is not going to work, and we're not going to be a part of anything that we can see that down the line is going to be a problem. So it's not really necessarily a thing of creating a race-based commission, because they have two for us, for Black people in the state of Massachusetts already. They have the Commission on the Status of African Americans, and then they have a Commission on the Status of Black Men and Boys. So those two things are race-based. They have a Latino and Latina commission. They have one for Asian Americans. So they have these race-based commissions. The problem that we're having with creating these commissions is once it comes down to meting out remedy for the target group, that's when people like Edward Bloom are going to step in, because he's already made it very clear that anything that's going to be based on race, he's coming after that. And so that's our thing. We're thinking down the line. People are thinking like in the moment, let's get the commission established and then we'll worry about this later. It's like, yeah, but the foundation of it is the legislation that creates the commission. You're going to have to work from there. So we're like, build the foundation the right way. Do it the right way from the foundation. Then as you moving forward, everything else is going to be on a strong, firm foundation. That's not what happened with the other bills. So we have ours and they have theirs.
That's a very good point. I was just going to say, that's a very good point that you mentioned there, Ali, to do it right the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So I just like to add that there were literally 7 different entities that came together for this consortium. We had Knockin and Cobra, we had ADOS Foundation, representative from that ADOS Foundation. We also had the NAACP, we had the Urban League, we had Encuentro Diaspora, we had Embrace Boston. So this is historical in the sense of we had a round table of all the grassroots and organizations that had a vested interest in reparations. And in the end, when I went back to the team and I said, listen, they want to put African descent in it, and we agreed not to. When we sent the email, or Brother Ali sent the email asking, either we take it out or just take out American Freedman, period, and then take United Sons and Daughters off this bill as being a contributor. So to our surprise, and this is just how do you say it, how when people don't get their way and they don't want to see what we're talking about and they don't want to listen and they want to do things their way, they end up putting freed men, freed women, and their descendants in the bill. And so to me, if you're not going to agree to what we're talking about and you want to keep it race-based, why do you have African American, why do you have African descent, and freed women, men and women, and their descendants? That's just too many titles for us. And so from my perspective, the legislators who make the decisions are like, listen, you all figure out who you are. And
don't forget with special consideration.
Yeah, with special consideration for African American. So I don't know. I mean, you're from Boston. These people are not. It's not their job to figure out who we are. It's not their job to label us. And so when you have a bill that has 4 different identities in it, it's kind of productive.
Right.
It should be one status for people. And if we're talking about slave reparations, why do you have to put African descent? Because to be perfectly honest with you, we in America, we're a mixed bag. We're not just African descent. So some people don't want to be called African descent or African American or whatever. So we're talking about the legacy of slavery and the badges and incidents that created the stain of slavery for this certain class of people that have this status. And so we have a right to honor our ancestors and what was been done to us and not be able to include other people. And I just thought it was disingenuous to add freed men, freed women, and their descendants with African descent and African American. That's just a hodgepodge, and it's very confusing to these white politicians.
Right.
How are they supposed to determine who we are? And they're looking at us like we're crazy. They're like, okay, you black people can't figure out who you are. And so that turns them off. And so I was really disappointed in that sense. And like Ali said, after 4 meetings, we were there. I mean, when they said American freedmen / people of African descent, I'm like, well, is African descent defining the American freedmen people? Or is this another group of people, and who are they? And I never got that answer. So why is it that when we have to do legislation, we always have to include somebody else? Why can't it just be straightforward for what's been done to us? And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. You would think that, white supremacists or white people are holding us back. It's not. It's our own people. Our people have this Pan-African ideology, and it's not the old school Pan-African ideology. It's more of a new way Pan-African ideology, and they feel like they're forcing their ideology on us. And not everybody's Pan-African. Not everybody wants to repatriate, and not everybody wants to be in the motherland. Not everybody wants to acknowledge or run around, speaking about their African heritage. We're talking about what happened to us here. It's 400 plus years of harms,
Right.
of history here in America. We have the right not to relate to Africa. But the people who are holding us back, like in California, those were Pan-Africans that didn't submit the bill. They're the ones who were jumping up and down, laughing and making fun of the fact that they held the bills. It had nothing to do with anything else other than the Pan-African people who want to control the narrative, controlling us as American freedmen. And it's about money. It's about money. It's not like the old I'm black and I'm proud era, liberation, people getting out, fighting for their rights, whatever. This is about money. This is about 501(c)(3)s getting money, getting bags, and it's really sick that we've been sold out, for our heritage by our own people who are American freedmen most of the time. Some of them aren't, but they just can't get that ideology out of their head, and it has nothing to do with our ancestors and what's been done to us. They don't even want to talk about the history sometimes. They're like, oh, that happened. We want reparations for slavery, but we don't care about the history. We want to get reparations for right now. We're starving. And it's sad.
Right. That's a really good point. And I've heard that from a lot of people. I heard that from Marcel. I heard it from, there was a gentleman who was a part of the Reparations Task Force in New York that came onto the show. Same situation. I've heard this from different reparations activists, and it's a big problem. I was talking about this the other night about one of the issues that happened with the feminist movement, that Gloria Steinem wave of feminism. One of the issues was that she was able to basically make the case that white women were also marginalized. So then the next thing you know, white women are added to affirmative action, and we know what happens when other groups are added. Like, we get pushed to the bottom. So I think it's important to acknowledge that. I guess the final question that I have for all of you is, what are the next steps now that you have these bills?
Well, we're going to launch a call to action soon. And for the state of Massachusetts, especially, we're waiting for the language of the other bill for the Freedman Affairs Agency to generate on the state's website before we make that call, so we can pretty much package both bills together. I mean, we've been instrumental behind the scenes, even in places like California. We've worked with groups there. We've worked with groups in Texas and New York. We've worked with people all over the country. So our work does not stop. Right now, we want to introduce legislation on the federal level to reestablish the Freedmen's Bureau as a Freedman Affairs Agency or an Office of American Freedmen Affairs. And we're going to keep educating, because that's part of what we've done. Sister Antonia has had us in some rooms with some very, very important people in the state of Massachusetts and Connecticut, senators, state senators, etc. And I want to just make one closing statement real brief, because I see people in the chat speaking about lineage. My last name is Way. My father's and his mother's last name is Wallace, and my mother's last name is Wade. Their ancestors' last name is Watkins and Glenn, right? So these are our lineages in the United States of America. We stay away from using the terminology lineage or lineage based because when you look at it in a legal context, it also ties into race. And this was something that we have shown. So what we're saying is that reparations will be based upon our status. And if you go back and you look at the oral arguments in that affirmative action case, Brett Kavanaugh was having a back and forth with Cameron Norris, one of the lawyers for the Students for Fair Admissions, who admitted that the benefits that descendants of slaves received was not based on their skin color and that it was not based on their race, but that it was based on their status. And we've since shown a plethora of information that solidifies those facts. So I just wanted to add that for those that do not know, because you may have not listened to Be the Power and those of us at United Sons and Daughters of Freedman because of your own ideological allegiance, organizational allegiance, et cetera, et cetera. Look it up yourself. Look up the cases that have linked race and lineage together. And we feel that the language has to be airtight in order for us to survive a strict scrutiny challenge. Thank you for having us. I am so appreciative.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming on. Keep me posted. Let me know how it goes. In the meantime, I am going to try to see if I can. It'll be tough, but I am going to try to see if I can get Governor Healy on the show because I have some questions for her. Yes. Not just about reparations, but some other ones. So I'll try to work on that. But thank you all so much for coming on and keep me posted.
No doubt. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye now.
All right, guys. Awesome. I am excited about that. I told you people are doing things on the local level. I told you it was happening around here. I told you what was going on. So we have quite a bit more to discuss. Let's go to some of the comments and we'll get to some of the other stories, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Mark Pugsley. Nobody ever talks about how pretty Candace is. I'm sorry, Mark. I don't know. Oh, Mark got a crush. Thanks, Roger. Sabby, you got Lord Abba Nahim. Oh, snap. Yeah. Robbie goes, be careful using Freedman. Not all Black grassroots ancestors were freedmen. But that falls under the legal term. Thank you, John. If Kamala Harris wanted to reach out to anti-Trump Republicans, she should have reached out to Justin Amash, the only Republican that I kind of like. I don't even think he's a Republican anymore. I think Justin Amash left the Republican Party and classifies as an independent. I think that's what I remember. I'll double check that, but that is a good point. Shout out to 100 Black Roke, who has been a member for 17 months since a lot of love. And thank you for the super chat as well. Be tactic. That's right. I think it's great. They're trying to make sure they get all the language right beforehand, right? Thank you, Darlin Duckett. Doing a great job, Sabby Abby. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Gangster Astrology and Rap Beef. That is an interesting name. Why keep begging them? Those giving you money control you. Well, it's a debt that's old, Thank you, Eric. Black liberation must be the negation of the commodification of Blackness as a whole. And Resurrect said we should go by Freedman because that's the title that has already been established in federal courts. Yeah, that's why they're trying to make sure they have the language airtight because, again, like I told you guys, we saw what happened in California, right? So let's get that comment on Rumble. Thank you. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Hi, Sabby. I woke up early, so I'm glad I get to watch you live. I listen to every stream of yours at work. The panel shows you do are great. I wish more people did things like that. Thank you. That's good to know. Yeah, I've been hearing that a bit from people. You guys seem to like the panels, you know? So I hope to do more of those, like more panels this year. Yeah. All right, let's give a shout out to Sabby patrons. Ladies and gentlemen, don't want to forget about them. Can't forget about you, fam. All right. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate. There's also Sabinators. Don't forget about those Sabsters. You know, they're just doing their damn thing, minding their own business. We also have some Sabbies who were kind of snazzy. That's what I'm told. I'm told they're kind of snazzy. And we also have members. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Yeah. And I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Vibha Srivenasan. Srivenasan. I think I'm saying it right. S-R-I, Srinivasan. Vibha Srinivasan. I'm going to get it right, Vibha. Thank you so much. And welcome. All right. We're going to go ahead and dive into the first news story of tonight. Tonight's theme, ladies and gentlemen, is it's all going down. Because it is. It is. All of these stories show you it is going down, just like the song. Meet me at the mall. It's going down. So, the first story. This is probably the biggest one in the news right now. If you have not heard, Donald Trump's deportations have begun. There have been video images of deportations in Chicago. They were here in Boston. We're going to get to all of that. But it has begun, ladies and gentlemen, and there's no turning back from here. We're going to talk about what is happening, what the judge has blocked, and we're also going to discuss how we got here to begin with. I think that's important to note, the how and the why. Now, with the birthright citizenship, that has already been blocked. You know, one of the things that Trump wanted to do was to end birthright citizenship. And I think a lot of people lost it over this. So basically, if your parents came here illegally, but they had you, your mom gave birth to you here in the United States, and you're automatically a U.S. citizen because you were born in the U.S., that was one of the first things that he wanted to do. He wanted to end birthright citizenship. But a federal judge has already blocked that. I don't know if everybody saw this here. It says a federal judge temporarily blocks Trump's executive order ending birthright citizenship. And this is one I tried to warn people about, that this one would face legal ramifications, because in the Constitution, if you're born in the United States, you are a U.S. citizen. So I didn't think this one was going to pass. There's also other issues with this one as well. I was thinking about some of the people that were a part of Trump's cabinet or part of his administration. Like, people were asking questions about Marco Rubio. You know, some people say that his parents came here because they were fleeing Castro, so they were automatically given legal status. There's been back and forth about that. People were asking questions about Vivek Ramaswamy, who, by the way, is no longer a part of Trump's administration. Turns out that H-1B visa comments and the things that he said about American workers didn't go over too well. So he's no longer part of Trump's administration, but I hear he is trying to run for governor of Ohio. But then there's questions about him, because remember, he talked about this on another podcast, which I've shown on this show before, where Vivek said, well, you know, technically, I think it was his dad wasn't here legally. Right. And they were asking him, well, but do you still support ending birthright? And he's like, well, yeah, I still support it. So there is some hypocrisy here where some people are pro ending birthright citizenship, even though they got birthright citizenship. So that's something else to keep in mind. But right now, that is blocked. And I do not see that one getting through. And then there's the ICE raids. Now, this is about to get crazy. OK, so the first video I want to show you here, Fox News reporter witnesses mass deportations taking place. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and dive into this video here.
A Fox News exclusive. This is from Bill Malugin reporting on the ICE raids captured on video out in Boston. Let's show you that. Again, this is Bill Malugin with Fox News in this exclusive.
It's a frigid 5 degrees in the pre-dawn hours just outside of Boston, where this team of elite ICE officers is briefing on their targets for the day.
We're going to be targeting some extremely violent offenders today.
Within moments, the officers are on the move, with eyes on their first target.
Looks like we got movement, target vehicle coming out.
They quickly take him into custody. He's an MS-13 gang member wanted in El Salvador for aggravated murder. And he has an Interpol red notice out for his arrest.
We are targeting very violent threats to our community.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Let me pause here for a second because I know the question that's coming up. If they're telling you that he had 17 convictions, you're probably wondering how come he's not in jail. So one of the issues that I think at least we ran into here in Massachusetts, I can't speak about the other states, but one of the things that has been brought up is that because of the status that they're under, Boston announced itself as a sanctuary city, right? Like Massachusetts announced itself as a sanctuary state. Because of that status that they're under, what was said by Governor Healy is that they would get charged and they would bring them in, but they couldn't detain them because of the status that they're under. So that's part of the issue that we've run into. Governor Maura Healey, by the way, has changed her position on this. A lot of things are changing, you guys. Like Governor Healey, she's the governor. She's the one that, remember they were sending migrants to Martha's Vineyard and all the rich, liberal white people said, you can't stay here. Yeah, people really showed their true colors, right? The people who said they should not be kicked out of the country, the moment they were brought into their backyard, they didn't want them there, which is ridiculous considering Martha's Vineyard is vacant most of the year, right? They have the money and the resources. So then the state decided to bring them into lower income Black neighborhoods like Roxbury here in Boston. And that caused issues there because Roxbury is one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city and they just don't have the resources. Eventually, it got to the point where Maura Healey announced that there were no more emergency shelters available. There was a representative from the State House on the news asking people to open up their doors, to be so kind to open up their doors. So it got to the point where they weren't getting help from the Biden administration. And now Maura Healey has changed her position. Now she is saying that, well, Massachusetts isn't a sanctuary state. Yeah, it's all changing. She also said she's not going to get in the way. People are asking, how is it that they can just come in and the governor has no say so? Maura Healey has responded by saying she will not get in the way of these arrests by ICE. So for people who were wondering.
You feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
ICE Boston quickly takes down its next targets, including this illegal alien from Brazil who has an Interpol red notice for armed robbery. This Salvadoran illegal alien charged locally with rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Yo, ¿cómo se llama?
And this Dominican illegal alien charged with assault with a deadly weapon and heroin trafficking. Officers also arrested this Guatemalan MS-13 gang member facing gun charges. ICE says he was released from local custody just the day before. Their detainer request was ignored because of sanctuary policies. And in a sign of shifting priorities with...
Pause. Did everybody hear what they just said? So because of the sanctuary policies, they can't detain them. So that's why they were released. Let's continue.
The new Trump administration, this man, who was in the same apartment as the target, was also arrested after ICE determined he's also in the U.S. illegally. This is what ICE calls collateral.
So you guys got your main target just now, but you got somebody else. What just happened?
So our main target was released by a sanctuary jurisdiction, not honoring a detainer. That person was released back into the community, and when we went to go find him, he's with somebody else who was previously removed from the United States. So he's going to go today too.
And that is exactly what Border Czar Tom Homan has warned would happen.
When we find the bad guy, he's probably with others that are in the United States illegally. They may not be a criminal priority, but we're not walking away from them.
ICE Boston says they will continue to go into sanctuary jurisdictions and do their job.
Today was a good day. Today we took several significant public safety threats out of our communities. Unfortunately, a lot were released by sanctuary policies, but we're here to tell the Commonwealth and the rest of the country that we're going to find them whether they're released or not.
Right again, Fox News' Bill Melugin.
Okay, so that was Boston, and of course that's where I am, right outside of Boston. So one of the things that I did notice, like most of the people are calling them the raids, most of the raids that I've seen, they are arresting people that have charges, right? And so I wanted you to see that video because a number of people have been asking, well, how is it they're not in prison if they have, these criminal charges? And because of under the sanctuary policies, they can't legally detain them. That's why they weren't there. Now I want to move on as well. We're going to go to what Maura Healey said here, and then we're going to get to Chicago. And you guys know Chicago has been in the news a lot about this particular situation. Just to show you again what Maura Healey said. Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey says she won't get in the way of federal immigration officials. So for people who were asking, why isn't the local, government stepping up? She made it very clear. Governor Maura Healey said there is no reason to be concerned about it because Massachusetts is not a so-called sanctuary state. So we were. She's changing on this, but we were. Healey said she does not plan to get in the way of federal immigration officials doing their jobs. However, Healey has expressed concerns about mass deportations and has said that Massachusetts State Police will not assist in those, but will cooperate with criminal enforcement. So there you have it, folks, right? So she's not getting in the way there. Keep telling you it's going down. And now we go to Chicago. Chicago has been one of the big ones. There have been tremendous outcries by, in particular, Black residents in Chicago against Mayor Brandon. I forget Brandon Johnson. I always forget Brandon's last name. But anyway, against Chicago's mayor, because of the way that he, allegedly treated migrants that he allowed to come into Black neighborhoods in Chicago. And Black residents in those neighborhoods said, well, we're asking for resources and you won't give anything to us, but you're giving them housing, you're giving them debit cards, etc. So no, like I told you guys before, if you're going to do for one, you do for all, right? Like everybody has the right to housing, in my opinion. Everybody should have housing. Everybody should be able to feed their families, etc. So the raids also have started in Chicago, and Brandon is doubling down. Let's get in.
Garrett Tenney is live for us in Chicago. Garrett.
Yeah, Harris, those proposed changes would have allowed Chicago police to work with ICE only in cases involving a violent criminal, which is the kind of people state and local officials claim they don't want to be here. Instead, progressives on the city council have spent the past week preparing to fight this expected ICE operation by canvassing Latino neighborhoods to pass out these flyers, telling folks to not open their doors and to remain silent if ICE agents show up looking for any convicted criminals.
Talking to people, the fear is palpable. The fear is vocalized. People in the streets are saying that they're scared that ICE agents will show up at their doorsteps, at their workplaces, at their places of worship or places of going to school. They're scared of that. That is a problem.
Governor J.B. Pritzker could push for changes in the state sanctuary policies to allow Illinois police to cooperate in some limited way, but he hasn't given any indication that that is something he is even considering, despite repeatedly saying criminal illegal migrants should be arrested and removed.
If there are violent criminals who have been convicted of violent crimes, who are undocumented, they are supposed to be deported. That is the law of the United States and has been for quite a long time. I don't want them in my state. I don't want them in the country. If you're going to commit crimes and you're undocumented, you don't deserve to stay in this country.
The sad irony here is that by
pause here though, but I think what's misleading about this is that, again, this is coming from Fox, so you got to take that into consideration. What's misleading is that they're not just arresting those that have criminal charges. Like, they started there, but as you heard, even with the Boston raids, they said there was another guy that they arrested who doesn't have criminal charges, but he was staying in the same apartment as one of the guys that did, and so he was basically, they got him by getting the other guy. Basically, to make a long story short, someone just mentioned that ICE was coming to school. I didn't even know that they were allowed to go to schools. So this is new to me, but yeah.
Not helping to remove those folks. Democrats here say that the folks they are trying to protect, those law-abiding individuals who are here illegally, by not cooperating with ICE, more of those very individuals are inevitably going to get picked up by ICE while agents are trying to track down those who are the most dangerous. One example, Harris, during an ICE operation in Chicago back in 2018, agents arrested 156 migrants. Of those, only 74 had criminal convictions. The other half were folks who just got caught up and were collateral arrest. Tom Home and others are warning we are almost certainly going to see a lot more of that because of these sanctuary policies. Harris?
And just so I'm clear, I mean, if they came here illegally, they already committed a crime. They broke our laws of sovereignty. So there's 156. Yes, 74 had committed crimes either in their former countries or in this one. But the balance of that was, from what you're saying, and that's what I want to get straight, they were here illegally anyway.
Right. But this is what I want to point out to you about the difference here between, you know, the narrative that Fox pushes and the narrative that CNN and MSNBC pushes, right? Because if you turn on to CNN and MSNBC, they have sympathy for the people that are being deported. If you turn on to Fox News, they don't have sympathy for the people that are being deported. But what she was just saying there, I mean, people came here, crossed the border illegally when Trump was president too. It's like this has always been a thing. This isn't new. So people do have to understand the border crossings didn't just start under Biden and Harris. Now, there were some numbers that I think their numbers have increased compared to what I saw before, but it didn't start there. And this goes back to partisan politics because I remember Barack Obama deporting a lot of people. And I don't remember seeing people who were Democrats that supported Barack Obama criticizing Barack Obama under his deportations. Now, after the fact, after his presidency, I do remember a amount of younger people that were like saying, whoa, we just found out Barack Obama deported all these people. But at that point, it was too late, right? Barack Obama had already served his 2 terms. But this just goes to show you again, the partisan politics, because if you're really upset about people crossing the border illegally, then it shouldn't matter who the president is. It shouldn't matter if it's a Republican in the White House or a Democrat. You would be mad across the board. That's the way I see it. And if you're outraged that people are being deported, then you should have also been outraged when Obama and Biden deported all those people. You should have also been outraged when Obama made those cages, the cages that the kids were put in under Trump. You should have been upset under both, is the point that I'm trying to get across. But people are so caught up in like their partisan politics. It's like, they don't get it, right?
Here illegally, not violent criminals, though. And that's what the administration is focusing on in this initial set of operations.
All right. That's helpful. Garrett, thank you. Gianno Caldwell, Fox News political analyst. Gianno, look, I made a fine point of this because it matters. The last administration was trying to legalize coming across our border in many illegal ways. Whether you crawled in, you went around the security checkpoints, they just wanted, okay, well, if you got here, you're safe. That's not how it works. That's not sovereignty. That's an open door. So picking up these people along with the violent criminals, what would you rather not do? Just not pick up anybody? That's what they wanted.
Exactly right.
Today is different.
Exactly
Trump's in
right.
office.
100%. And Governor J.B. Pritzker is speaking out of both sides of his mouth, saying he doesn't want violent criminals there. But yet people, as you mentioned, they broke the law and they came over here. It's the exact same thing. You committed a crime by entering the United States of America, and it has cost us in blood and treasure. Blood by the 100,000 plus people who've overdosed on a drug, And we've seen that in recent years since Biden has taken office, and treasured with the billions of dollars of resources that are being usurped from the people of Illinois and the people of the city of Chicago, New York, and all across the country. It must come to an end. And thank God this day has come with Donald Trump in office to get the country back on its feet.
Well, look, you knew that.
Okay, so what they don't mention to you, which I think is important, is that they don't get into the why and the how. If you look at the countries, most of the countries where people are coming from, these are the countries that the U.S. government has destabilized. These are the countries that the U.S. government has demolished. Venezuela, Haiti. And Haiti, by the way, everybody wants to mention France. Yes, France also had their part in, trying to not just slave trade, but don't forget that Haiti had to pay reparations to France. So there's the France part, but then there's the U.S. government part. There's Woodrow Wilson. There's Bill Clinton. People have to remember that Woodrow Wilson, he sent in the U.S. Marines into Haiti. He seized their banks, their businesses, all of these things. This goes way back, because Haiti has a lot of resources. So people will point to a country like Haiti and they'll say, oh my God, Haiti is so poor. Not in resources, it's not. And when you point to these countries and you ask yourself, how did it become so poor? You say it's so poor. It's important that you understand how. So we've had a hand in a lot of this. It's the countries that we've destroyed. Look at where they're coming from. They're not coming from Germany. They're not coming from France. Look at where they're coming from. We destroyed Venezuela. We still are destroying Venezuela. People are complaining about people from Venezuela crossing over, but I don't hear nobody complaining about the U.S. government continuing to put sanctions on Venezuela, overthrowing their leaders, etc. And then it's the type of person that they want, right? Because they have no problem allowing refuge to those coming from Ukraine, from those coming to Belarus. It's a certain type of person that they have no problem extending that to, for certain people. Now, Chris Cuomo dives into this as well. Now, this is Tom Homan, who is a part of all of this. He's the border czar. Listen to this.
What is that looking like in real time? Let's discuss with the White House border czar, Tom Homan. Congratulations on beginning the actual work, and thank you for joining me as promised.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Tom, let's look at it two ways. One group looks at what you're doing and says, yeah, this is what ICE always does. His guys rounded up 370 people or so. During the Biden administration, they rounded up 300 something a day. This isn't really that different. How is it different?
Well, look, the arrests are a lot higher than were the Biden administration. And we're out there. We just started this nationwide operation. And right now, in the first couple of days, we're at over 3,000 criminals arrested. And that's a significant impact on public safety. The thing we're doing different from the Biden administration is we're not holding ICE to a lower standard. Under the Mayorkas memorandum, ICE wasn't able to arrest all the public safety threats in the country. Like you said earlier, they had to be convicted of a serious crime. There's nothing in the Immigration and Nationality Act that says you got to be convicted of a crime if you're here illegally to be removed. You can be removed simply for being illegally. So we've told ICE to concentrate out of the gate. As I told you in the last show, our focus is on arresting public safety threats and national security threats. That's exactly what we're doing now.
So if the numbers that they just showed, if that's true, if those numbers aren't that different, then where is the outrage coming from? Does everybody see what just happened there? Chris Cuomo just showed you the numbers. He said these numbers aren't that different from what happened under the Biden administration. Then where is the outrage coming from? It makes you wonder if part of this, well, the media, of course, if the media has just been duping people all along. If those numbers, I'm gonna have to go check those numbers myself. But if he's right that those numbers are the same, then it makes you wonder.
Let me ask you about that. The concern of the Democrats is you're going to round up dreamers and you're going to round up people who have done penny ante offenses, who are otherwise contributing here, and that's too harsh.
Well, look, you know, the number of collateral arrests are going to be higher during this operation for one reason and one reason only, because we're not allowed to arrest the criminal alien inside of a jail in sanctuary cities like New York and Chicago and L.A. and Portland. And, you know, the major the target-rich environments where a lot of illegal aliens domicile. They're not letting us in the county jail because of sanctuary laws. If we could arrest the bad guy in the safety and security of a jail, which is safer for the officers, safer for the aliens, safer for the community, then there'd be a lot less of those type, like you just said, low-level offenders. There'd be a lot less of them arrested. But when you force us in the community, we're going to find that guy sooner or later. It takes more time and it's less efficient than getting him in a county jail. But when we find him, he's most likely being with others. And if they're in the United States illegally, they're going to be arrested too, because we're not going to do what the Biden administration said. We're not going to say ICE can't, because the Biden administration, here's your instructions to ICE. Being in the country illegally on his own is not enough for you to effect an arrest. Ignore the law, ignore the oath you took. You need to have a serious crime. There's nothing in the law that says it, so they're going to force us in neighborhoods, and we're not going to tell ICE to turn a blind eye to an illegal alien. They're going to come too. So the sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the neighborhoods and more collateral arrests while we're doing this criminal operation.
He almost talks like there's something in his mouth. I don't know that maybe that was just me. I don't know.
Why can't the president, let alone the federal government, has such sweeping, if not complete, or as they say in the law, plenary authority when it comes to immigration? Why are states and municipalities able to keep federal agents out in so-called sanctuary cities?
Well, look, they'll be taking the court real soon. They've already been warned that federal law overrides any local jurisdiction law. So this is going to be played out in the courts, because, you know, they got to understand. I said, I don't know if it's said in your last show or not. I'm amazed every day when I wake up that there's an elected mayor or elected governor or elected city councilman that doesn't want public safety threats removed from their community. They should be working hand in hand with it. Like when I had my discussions with Mayor Adams in New York, he made it clear, no, he'll help me with the criminals, but he doesn't want to be an immigration officer. I don't want to be an immigration officer. I want to be a cop working with cops and help protect this community. When it comes to immigration enforcement and the non-criminals, leave that up to me. That's my job and that's ICE's job. But public servants, people elected by the people, politicians elected by the people, their number one responsibility is protection of the communities. So I don't understand, why not let us in tax-funded jail to arrest the bad guy that you already decided to lock him in a jail cell for obvious reasons? Well, when you're done with him, give him to us rather than release him back into the community, because where's he going to reoffend? In the very community he lives, the immigrant community. So it puts the immigrant community at greater risk of crime. And I swear to you, if anybody went to an immigrant community and had a town hall and asked them a simple question, would you rather have ICE operating in your community or the jail? They'd all say jail, because immigrant communities, even though they're here illegally, after they get here, they're God-fearing family people. They don't want a predator in their neighborhoods either. So let's work together and get the criminals in the safety and security of the jail. It makes sense.
Okay, honey, I hope you do something with the speech. I don't know what's going on with this. He sound a little tongue-tied. So first, I want to show you what could happen if all of this goes as planned, right? And I showed this the other night as well, but just for those who may have missed it. If everything goes as planned, which means it's not just those who are, have charges, but it's also the dreamers that are also deported. If that birthright citizenship, for whatever reason, makes it to the Supreme Court and they push it through, I want to show you what the big problem that we're going to have. The problem that we're going to run into is the food, right? So listen to what this farmer said here from South Dakota, who, by the way, voted for Donald Trump and still supports Donald Trump. Listen to this.
What percentage of your workers are not U.S. born?
Probably half.
About half?
Yeah.
How many hours does this go on?
It's 24 hours a day. We could milk 8 hours a day, but it wouldn't be feasible or profitable for us to produce milk.
So you need workers like this year-round?
Yes.
Governor Kristi Noem of South Dakota, her farm is just a few miles away. This farmer who voted for her, who voted for Trump, who still supports them, doesn't believe that they would round up immigrants and ask them for their immigration status, because it's an open secret that farms in this state are held up by undocumented workers. Are you worried, like some of your other farmers, that if there were a mass roundup of undocumented migrants, that you might lose workers? You might not have enough workers.
Well, the question I asked, how are they going to do that? Within 2 days, we will not have food. There will not be food anywhere.
2 days?
Yes. That's why I predict nobody will be filling the shelves, nobody will be producing food. If we once have to shut down and be gone, it's never coming back.
Does Governor Noem understand that?
I would think so.
You have a lot of faith that they're not going to do what they're saying.
That's pretty much what I'm thinking. So we have to trust in our officials that are put in place.
So he doesn't think that it's going to happen, but the food issue is very real. And people continue to say, well, they can hire Americans for those jobs. The reality is, if he would have to pay them at least a minimum wage, and I would assume he's not paying, those other workers the $7.25 an hour. That's why he hired them, because he can pay them less. And then you're also talking about benefits and everything else that comes with that as well. So I'm willing to guess they probably don't have full-time benefits, like just those types of things. They may not have health care. They may not have all those things, right? So this is what's been happening with agriculture. That would also mean that food prices would increase. If we have less food, obviously the food prices are going to increase. So that's a very real reality. I mean, like, people need to talk about that. If all that stuff goes through, there's nothing in place designed to deal with that. But I think it's also important to ask, how do we get here? How do we get here? A lot of times when I do the how do we get there, it always goes back to either Ronald Reagan policies, Bill Clinton policies. I think we just got to LBJ a couple of weeks ago, LBJ policies. But a lot of times we get right back to this oldie but goodie, Barack Obama. Rotimi says the fact that Democrats have departed from this immigration message and now it's just something else that makes no sense is ridiculous to me. And it's allowed Republicans to radicalize the country into mass deportations. We just need common sense back. I just want to remind you what Barack Obama said about immigration.
This is not going to be a free ride. It's not going to be some instant amnesty. What's going to happen is you are going to pay a significant fine. You are going to learn English. You are going to go to the back of the line so that you don't get ahead of somebody who was in Mexico City applying legally. But after you've done these things over a certain period of time, you can earn your citizenship, so that it's not something that is guaranteed or automatic. You've got to earn it, but over time, you give people an opportunity. Now,
Brain Power said, oh, he was so cute back then.
It only works, though, if you do all the pieces. I think the American people, they appreciate and believe in immigration, but they can't have a situation where you just have 500,000 people pouring over the border without any kind of mechanism to control it. So we've got to deal with that at the same time as we deal in a humane fashion with folks who have put down roots here, have become our neighbors, have become our friends. They may have children who are U.S. citizens. That's the kind of comprehensive approach that we have to take.
So sorry, the volume for that video is kind of low, but did you hear what Barack Obama said? He said, okay, but here are the things that you have to do. He said, you're going to have to learn English. You're not going to get a free ride. You're going to have to work hard. You can't cut in front of other people in the line. Problem is, Barack Obama didn't do any of those things. The Democratic Party didn't follow up on that. They didn't actually apply those things that he just told you. And so because that wasn't done, now what you have was someone like Donald Trump who was able to radicalize people to get them to say, let's get everybody out of here. Just get everybody out. But if this would have been done, think about that. You know, I don't think there was anything wrong with what Barack Obama said there. Not one thing at all. Because the reality is, if you move to another country too, you're going to try the best that you can to try to get towards there as well. Oh, Eric, did I not send you the CNN one? We need to add that one. That one's important. Maybe I didn't send it to you. Hold on one second, guys. I got to show that clip from CNN. Yeah, that one's not added. Let me just add it myself. Okay. Corey, when you clip this, can you cut this part out? Thank you. Okay. Because I want to show you what's happening. So I think it was important that I showed you like how we got to this place, because then you'll be able to see like what I'm about to show you, which is this link from CNN. I don't know why. Let me try this again. There we go. Okay. Let's try again. Okay, here we go. Because the problem that I've noticed is like, this isn't just a Donald Trump thing. I saw this video from CNN. Let me put this up here. And they're showing you how the popularity of deportations has changed over time. And I think people need to see this. Let me put this here up on the screen. Here you go. Watch this.
Deport all immigrants here illegally. I will note the ABC News poll asked about undocumented immigrants. So we have slightly different questions, but these were all taken within the last month. And there's real uniformity here. That's what I really think you see. You see real uniformity. Deport all immigrants who are here illegally. 55% of the New York Times. Marquette, 64%. CBS News, 57%. ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%. So what you're seeing.
These are left-leaning outlets, by the way. Left-leaning.
Essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters.
So if they say yes today-ish, how has that changed over time?
Yeah, this is where I think you get very interesting. And so we'll take a look at that ABC News question in particular, because you can really see that there's been a massive shift from when Trump was first getting into office 8 years ago, right? Deport all undocumented immigrants. You go back to 2015, I'm going to come to your side of the screen, it was 42%. Hello. Go to 2016, it was 36%. Look at where we are now. This was taken at the end of last year, 56%.
Deport all undocumented immigrants among adults across the board. Again, these are not just Republicans. Across the board, this is increased. The agreement to deport undocumented immigrants has increased since the end of Barack Obama's term. This is what I was trying to tell people. Some of the issues that we have today politically, they go back to Obama. They go back to Ronald Reagan policies. They go back to Bill Clinton policies. They go back to those policies, the neoliberalism policies, the George W. Bush, policies that got us where we are right now. So if Barack Obama would have done what he said he was supposed to do in that video that I showed you, the approval for this probably would have been lower than where it is now. But Obama didn't do that. Now, why didn't they do it? They didn't do it because the billionaire class doesn't want that. Barack Obama didn't follow that because he was a Wall Street puppet. And Wall Street wants cheap labor. Billionaires want cheap labor. That's what this is really all about, folks. They want people who are going to come into the U.S. and do the work for less. Sorry, had to cough. So this is what it really comes down to. Once again, something that wasn't done.
This is 20 points higher than it was just before Trump got into office the first time. So feelings towards immigration in this country, feelings towards undocumented immigrants and deporting all of them have become considerably more hawkish. And I think that gives Donald Trump much more leverage to go with the American people and sort of have these hawkish, some might say harsh, different rhetoric and also issue-based sort of going after immigrants who are here illegally. And so I think the American people are going to give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt to do what he wants to do, at least if you believe these blunt questions, including this one.
So this is why someone like Donald Trump can come in with harsh rhetoric and say, well, we're going to get rid of the dreamers too. This is why he's able to say that and still have that higher, that's more than half approval rating there, because Barack Obama did not do those things that he said that he was going to do. He didn't implement those things. This is why. So what happens is, again, people get frustrated and they turn all the way to the other side. We've seen it happen over and over again. But at the end of the day, we have to talk about who does it really benefit, because it doesn't benefit us. It benefits the billionaire class. That's who it benefits. You're talking about these wealthy corporations, like these people. Elon Musk benefits from cheap labor. Hell, he doesn't even want Tesla employees. He won't even let them unionize. Give me a break. This is what happens in a capitalist system, you guys. In a capitalist system, there will always be the need for, of course, competition. And in that need for competition with free market, that brings about, how can I save money? How can I make money? And the way that a lot of these businesses try to save money is by getting cheap labor. So that way, the guy at the top makes more money. Our country has been doing this for years. But we've increased billionaires. These are crazy times, guys. Crazy times. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you, John. Just for shits and giggles, Nicolas Cage for president 2028. His campaign slogan would be "Not the bees." LOL. He would be the most monotone president ever. Actually, no. Well, if he would have won, that would have been Bob Dole. Bob Dole would have been the most monotone. Thank you, 100 Black Roke, running his mouth like Shiva. Lana said, making dandelion tea. That sounds yummy. Thank you for the super sticker, James Starks. Margotina, interesting point. You can't be pro-worker and support illegal immigration. You know what? This is something that this was something I forgot to mention, you guys. Bernie Sanders had that position too earlier on. Like before he ran for president, Bernie Sanders had that exact same position because he said that illegal immigration hurts the working class here in America. He changed that position when he ran for president. But to Margotina's point, like also these people are being exploited. Thank you, 100 Black Roke. Gotta stop with the we, Sabby. Yuha's daughter says, Sabby, you're funny. You're always saying, I told ya. I do say told ya. Thank you, Perry Stein. If these migrants were white people from Finland, would migration be a political issue? Probably not. Right? David, I guess border czar is okay to say now that it's not Kamala. I guess so. Thank you, Lisa something. It's not immigrant communities they go back to the Black community. That's true as well. You know what else allowed it to get to this situation too? Kamala Harris ran to the right on immigration. She ran to the right on the border. So part of the reason why that number also may be higher now is because you had a Democrat president who also ran to the right on this issue. So there's that too. Thank you, Satra. Farmer White, he gets subsidies, grants, loans, land, etc. Farmer underpays, no benefits, but farmer get benefit, and he say he won't last 2 days. BS. Farmer being cheap, huh, Satra? Thank you, Fuzzy. Fuzzy balls. What other advanced nation allows unvetted immigration? No one calls out Japan. I don't oppose immigration. I oppose unvetted immigration. Interesting point. Thank you, David. U.S. government destabilized countries. Immigrants flee here. Corporations exploit cheap labor. Citizens get screwed. It's a top-heavy cycle that will fail. Thanks, Sparky says, love you, Sabby. Love you too. And thanks, Nerd Flick. We're not freedmen through our ancestors. We're for one generation. This is why and how they'll mess us over. I skipped that section because so many underinformed people are setting us up for failure. Thank you, Nerd Flick. Get nerdy with me. All right, guys, let's go ahead and smash that like button, fam. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the next story. This is a funny one. Pretty funny. We got to laugh now, right? So, ever since, Kamala Harris lost, people have been playing the blame game. You know, people blame Biden. People blamed the voters. We're uninformed, that type of thing. But people didn't really want to point their fingers at Kamala for not running a great campaign, right? So there's that too, as well. Not running a strong, working class agenda, etc. Bernie made the blue point for this. Now they're blaming somebody else. Now, and in fact, it's Kamala blaming somebody else. Now she's pointing the finger like that at someone else. First, I want to remind you what Van Jones said on this panel after she lost. Listen to this.
But, it all came down to many, many things, right? But when you look at the actual votes, it wasn't as if Trump suddenly surged in so many things. Yeah. It's that Democrats did worse. Monmouth went through just the blue states. Trump got an extra 280,000 votes this time versus last time. So he improved. Yep, but that's not the story. Look at this full screen. Yeah, Harris lost 3,339,404 votes. Yes. That's what stands out there.
Well, Bakari Sellers said over and over again, it's either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or the couch.
And it was more than that. This was at that time. So just FYI.
Bakari was always worried about the couch. People just not feeling inspired enough to go out and vote. He wasn't worried that people were going to not vote for Kamala and go vote for Trump. He was afraid they weren't going to vote at all. And here's how we got beat. We got beat because the Republicans and the conservatives built a different media system that had to do with online, had to do with podcasts, had to do with streaming platforms, and they were spending their money there. We were laughing at them and knocking on doors in Philadelphia and Detroit. It's like, there's no Trump people. They're not dropping literature. They're not knocking on doors.
In fact, it was laughing like, oh, Elon Musk and Charlie Kirk with their PACs don't know what they're doing.
We were making fun of Donald Trump for having thrown away his ground game and doing some weird stuff online. We thought that they were idiots. It turned out we were the idiots. We woke up in a body bag because while we were knocking on doors, they were making these phones into 24-hour-a-day political weapons for themselves. And so we got outflanked, outplayed, outbeat by people who told us the whole time that they knew what they were doing. And people are mad. And Future Forward, all these different groups that vacuumed up all this money and told everybody to sit down and shut up are going to be in for an accountability session from the grassroots, and it is coming.
I remember when you...
We'll pause here for a second. So Van Jones was, man enough to admit we got outplayed, outflanked. Yeah. I mean, at least he was able to admit it. It was just, I felt like that was one of the more honest answers, right? And he found a way to say it without pointing his finger directly at Kamala. Everybody noticed that, right? So doesn't want to mention the Gaza issue, at least not at that point in time. We're going a little bit more here, and I'll tell you who she's blaming now.
You and I were speaking at one point earlier. You were talking about algorithms, all kinds of data that was available that you were, people were going to be presenting to the Harris campaign.
Sure.
And I suppose you're going to say that did fall on deaf ears to large part?
Yeah, Van's right. They were like, we've got it.
We've got it.
And they didn't have it. And one very obvious missed opportunity is that Joe Rogan is the biggest audience in the country. It's disaffected, low propensity men, kind of the audience that the Harris campaign should be trying to reach, it was much more upside than anything else. Kamala goes on, Tim Walz goes on, and then you have millions of men who are exposed to the Democratic message, and
Never
they turned it down because she was too busy. I mean, like it makes zero sense, except in the context that the team just didn't have confidence in her to do it, which would be its own issue.
Unless you think he's being mean. 48 million views for the Rogan-Trump interview on YouTube alone.
Which was what, a 3-hour interview?
A 3-hour interview with 48 million views. Like, they were laughing. Oh,
that's 2/3 of the total number of votes that Harris.
Yeah, so
it's more than debate, I think. It's like 1 million
Can I
watched the
jump in
debate.
here?
Yeah, Lulu.
I mean, I'm very happy that everyone's talking here about the information ecosystem. Obviously, it's incredibly important. So is Joe Rogan. But there is two issues here. One is the message, and the other is the messenger. And so, and how those messages are delivered. And so, you know, there is a lot of discussion right now about the ground game and how you reach voters and all these things. And I think that's going to be parsed. But, you know, voters told the Democratic Party over and over and over again that their main issues were their pocketbooks, inflation, and immigration. And that was what they told them.
Yep.
And the closing message of the Democratic Party was democracy and Donald Trump is a bad man.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, she hit the nail on the head there. And then later on, after the election, there was a poll that showed that, which we covered on the show, that apparently some of the people who voted for Biden did not come back out to vote for Kamala because of the Gaza issue, which the Democratic Party just tried to pretend like they really didn't have to listen to the people about. So there was that as well. However, ladies and gentlemen, it's going down. Oh, yeah, it's going down because now Kamala is blaming somebody else. Kamala is blaming Doug. Dougie Doug. It's a doggy dog world. Kamala is blaming her own husband, Doug. It's Doug's fault. You did it, damn it. Let's get into this here. Inside former VP Kamala Harris marriage turmoil as Doug Emhoff scandals are blamed for losing the presidency. Oh, buddy, Dougie Doug. Kamala Harris was all smiles and affection to her beloved second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, in the immediate aftermath of her crushing presidential election defeat. But now that President Donald Trump has been sworn into office for sore loser Harris, they said sore loser Harris. Wow. It is now all about the blame game, and her target has flipped to her dead weight husband. And as she weighs her political future, maybe a 2026 run for governor of California or another try at the nation's top job 2 years later, she has to consider whether Emhoff is an asset or a liability. One source exclusively told thedailymail.com there's plenty of blame to go around as far as Kamala is concerned, and Doug has his share. Doug did Kamala no favors during the election. Frankly, he looked like a hypocritical ass after the bombshells that he had got his child nanny pregnant while married to his first wife and assaulted his ex-girlfriend on the heels of his I Am Woman crusade. Allegedly. So I guess now this source says that Kamala is blaming Doug for his scandals and believes, I guess this is why she did not win. Let me tell you something, Kamala. You may not believe this or not, but most people didn't even know who Doug was. Sorry, just reality. Most people weren't paying attention to all of that. Okay, so I don't know. Most people weren't paying attention to Dougie Doug. And I don't think most people even knew Doug's name. So I don't know. Now, there are some issues with Doug. We're not going to say there aren't. But I don't know if he is the reason why, or you should blame him for the reason why you lost. Despite their brave united front at the inauguration and at President Jimmy Carter's January 9th funeral, those close to the couple believe all is not hunky-dory between them. What is going on with everybody's relationships after this election, fam? First, we talked about Michelle and Barack Obama, and we're like, where the hell is Michelle? What is going on? Right? Michelle's everywhere but here. We talked about that. I'm not even going to get into the Jennifer Aniston stuff. I have no proof over that. I think it's just a rumor. And now Kamala and Doug are having problems. And word is the husband of California girl Kamala has already signed up for a job with a Big Apple law firm, which will require them to split their time between New York and Los Angeles. Uh-oh. That's never good. That is not a good one. At Monday's presidential inauguration, the couple presented a united front, though their expressions remain grim as they sat through Trump's speech, their faces mirroring the tension. So it's like, it's like you can cut that tension with a knife. Why did you say this, You guys are so funny. GM says Doug has no lips. Tisha said dirty dog. Oh, Doug, they don't like you. Let's go on here. Oh my gosh. And there's Doug there with what I believe is there. That is a close up. I guess they were zooming in to see if he still had on his wedding ring. That was funny. But let's get to this part here. Harris wearing a black pantsuit with exposed zippers sat stoically throughout the ceremony, holding an inaugural program in her lap. She was seen crossing her wrists and pinching the program in her fingers as Trump delivered his address, of course. Imhoff similarly matched the disdain on his wife's face, but took it a step further, grimacing and shaking his head lightly when Trump promised to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. The couple left the Capitol building together, briefly shaking hands with Trump and bidding Joe and Jill Biden farewell, with plans to return to California. But now that Harris has been defeated, she's reportedly looking to undergo a complete image overhaul. Wow. To resuscitate her floundering political career, maybe at the expense of Imhoff. Daily Mail exclusively reported she plans to write a book, of course, which could give her finances a multi-million-dollar boost. Harris's campaign suffered multiple setbacks after DailyMail.com exclusively reported a series of allegations surrounding Imhoff that Harris deftly brushed aside during the final stretch of her political journey. So here's my take, guys. I think that when those accusations came out, you know, Kamala was running for office. I think Kamala should have responded. And she didn't, you know, like it would have been different if this came out, she wasn't running for president, but you were running for president. So I think she should have responded to that. Instead, she just ignored it. But again, I will say, I don't think a lot of people even knew who Doug was. So there's that. Continuing on. He goes on to say here, man, a lot of people relationships are having problems after this campaign. This is a doozy. Imhoff famously stepped away from his own prominent career as an attorney in California to fully support Harris' political ambitions in 2020, becoming hell-bent on perfecting his image as a wife guy. A wife guy. That's what we're calling it nowadays, huh? But behind the carefully curated social media posts and campaign photos, even the strongest relationships face challenges. The source said, I see the signs that all are not hunky-dory in the Harris household. It's not like she hasn't had men help further her political career before, the source said, referring to her affair with downtown Willie Brown. But what does Doug do for her now? Oh, no. This is a good question. So maybe it could be that now Kamala's sitting back and she's saying, what have you done for me lately, Doug? You know, what have you done for me lately? Ooh, that kind of thing. That song's by Janet Jackson is interesting enough because a lot of people turned on Janet Jackson when she said that she didn't believe that Kamala Harris was a Black American. So funny how that happens. Continuing on. I was with her last week when she was signing her desk. Her former communications chief, Ashley Atine, told dailymail.com. And it goes on here. Oh, Doug. It's a Dougie Doug world. And these are some of the pictures. So listen to this, okay? It says, Doug cheated on his first wife, Najeen Naylor, who also taught at their children's pricey private school. Okay. And then we can see here, when Kirsten split from Imhoff, her daughter Ella was finishing the 3rd grade. Naylor was Ella's nanny at the time. She told me, you know me well enough to know that I'm not going to go away quietly. This is coming from Kamala Harris. Over the summer, dailymail.com exclusively reported a series of allegations surrounding Imhoff that Harris attempted to brush aside during the final stretch of her political journey. In August, we reported Imhoff had an affair with Najeen Naylor, his daughter's nanny, while still married to his first wife, film producer Kirsten Mackin, an illicit fling that allegedly resulted in a pregnancy and a subsequent miscarriage. Jesus Christ. So Doug came with some baggage. That's what it sounds like. A source claimed that Doug paid Naylor $80,000 in exchange for her signing a non-disclosure agreement and that the affair played a part in his 2009 divorce. But the controversy didn't end there. In October, a former girlfriend of Imhoff's came forward alleging a disturbing incident during an A-list event in Cannes, France in May 2012. According to her, Imhoff slapped her so hard in the face after he thought she was flirting with another man that the blow spun her around, leaving her shocked and disoriented. So according to all this, allegedly, Doug likes to hit women. Dougie Doug world. Okay. All righty. Says Kamala Harris's husband, Doug, is accused of violently striking his former girlfriend. So that was that part there. And then here's a email here, says found in sent mailbox. Hi, sweetie. We aren't staying at the, did we get the E there? We aren't staying at the Negresco because the rooms they still had available were uber expensive. However, I was able to book a room at Concord, which is just a couple of blocks on the same street. Yada, yada. The Negresco is at yada, yada, yada. I've also attached our itinerary. Unfortunately, we will have to leave a day earlier than you so that Doug can be back in LA for his daughter's birthday. Smooches. It says that is from May 17th, 2012, email provided by the friends, written by his then girlfriend, gives the location of the hotel in Nice. The couple stayed at on the weekend he allegedly struck her. Okay, so they got some receipts to show that she was, I guess, there at that time. He comes up, turns me around by my right shoulder. I'm completely caught off guard. I'm not bracing. I'm in 4-inch heels, wearing a full-length gown, and it's been 2 to 3 a.m. He slaps me so hard, I spin around and I am in utter shock. Oh, thank you, Welch's Nice, France. Thank you. So allegedly, he hit her that hard. Who is Doug? Right? Who is Doug? It goes on to say Imhoff has since admitted the extramarital affair, saying during my first marriage, Kirsten and I went through some tough times on account of my actions. I took responsibility, and in the years since, we worked through things as a family and have come out stronger on the other side. But he has denied through an anonymous spokesperson ever having slapped his girlfriend. Any suggestion that Doug would or has ever hit a woman is false. So that's why we say allegedly. Imhoff also faced reports from his former colleagues at the LA law firm, Venable, where he worked from 2006 and 2017. They described a work culture marked by misogyny, claiming that Imhoff allegedly yelled expletives, held a man-only cocktail hour in the office, revoked work perks from women who didn't flirt with him, and preferred only young, attractive associates to accompany him in limousines to professional events. Who is Doug? Harris has never publicly commented on any of the allegations, instead choosing to shy away from the controversy. But the Democrats' golden girl, known for her relentless drive, is now tarnished and has to face the reality of her marriage potentially crumbling following her loss to Donald Trump. So I don't know, guys. Again, these are accusations. We have no proof that he's guilty. But the reality is, I think, fam, I think that Kamala is looking for other people to blame other than herself. That's kind of how I see it. Now, don't get me wrong. Like the Democratic Party, Democrat leadership as a whole, their hands aren't clean in this either. But I do think that Kamala did not follow Bernie Sanders' blueprint and just run a working class agenda. And that definitely hurt her. Also, we're at a point now where Black Americans are asking for more for their vote. And she didn't offer anything there either until people started complaining. And then by that point, it was already too late. So there's that. I don't know, man. I think everybody's just trying to find somebody else to blame. It is going down. It is going down. Let's go to some of the comments, guys. Hey. Sonder says her husband would not let her have a ceasefire. Interesting. Thanks, Fuzzy Balls. Kamala is uninspiring, inauthentic, and dumber than two bricks. We saw when Tulsi annihilated her in the Democratic debate. She had nothing, just smiled. Jasmine, thanks. It's everybody's fault but her own. Now her man is the problem. LOL. Everybody's blaming Doug. Thank you, Walter. She lost because she is fakety fake. Thanks, Trusting Success. The only time I heard Doug speak is when he confirmed that Kamala would not withhold weapons in support to Israel. He was a non-factor. Yeah. So this is the phrase from Real Housewives, right? For those who are not aware, the non-factor thing. Kenya did a little twirl. I think it came from Kenya. Kenya did a little twirl on Real Housewives of Atlanta. And she said, "You are a non-factor." Twirl, I'm gone with the wind, fabulous. The guys in the chat may not know what I'm talking about, but thank you, Dre Harden. What's sad is people will absolutely buy that book. They will. Thanks, Courtney. Nobody's probably laughing harder at this than Jill. She probably is. Thanks, John. Would you ever consider debating Hammer or Tree of Logic? I don't know who that is, but yeah, I don't know who that is. But if you could let me know. Thank you, Andrew. Good luck to Kamala with her attempt to revamp her image. Her baggage from the Biden administration and her failed campaign will follow her forever. Bathtub, collard greens, and prayers. Damn. And thank you, Dre. Let's give Doug credit. Kamala looks better because that was Honey Boo Boo's mom in that photo. What was he doing in these streets? Hashtag pimp name slip back. Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh, buddy. Oh boy. Everybody's got jokes. Okay. Go ahead and smash that like button, guys. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. Just like a Care Bear. And we're diving into a story that is not funny. And I do think it could be a sign of what's to come. So we all need to be prepared about this. Okay. Okay, so During the pro-Palestinian protest at Harvard University, there were billionaires like Bill Ackman who demanded that the president of the university should be removed. We all need to go through that whole story. We all know that happened, etc. So you had someone who was a billionaire, who's also a Zionist, whose daughter was also attending the school, from what I understand, basically making some very strong calls there. One of those criticisms as well is that the DEI programs that were offered at Harvard did not include Jewish students. So that was another thing that was brought up. Now, Harvard has done something that I feel is incredibly dangerous in regards to free speech. They have decided to officially adopt the new definition of anti-Semitism, and they have settled the anti-Semitism lawsuits, and they will be making payouts. Well, let's bring this up here, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big one. Hey, Harvard settles anti-Semitism lawsuits. It adopts the IHRA definition, bolsters anti-Semitism education. Guys, this is very scary for free speech. And honestly, I already had, opinions about Harvard before October 7th of last year, but it has become worse, of course, right? So let's get into the lawsuits. So the first suit was filed January 2024 by Shabos and 5 other Jewish students. The students were represented by Students Against Anti-Semitism, a group that also sued NYU, Columbia University, University of Pennsylvania later that year. Their complaint alleged that Harvard has become a bastion of rampant anti-Jewish hatred and harassment. So Kestenbaum did not join Tuesday's settlement and is continuing his litigation against the university. He spoke at the Republican National Convention last July and has attracted criticism from some students for his combativeness and aggressive rhetoric. That was the first suit. The second suit was filed May of 2024. This one is by Louis D. Brandeis Center for Human Rights under law. Now, this one, the group's founder and chairman, Kenneth Marcus, served in the Bush and Trump administrations. In 2004, during the Bush administration, he helped expand Title VI of the Civil Rights Acts of 1964 protections to include ethnicity and religion. So does everybody see what's happening here? Remember what I tried to tell you the other night, how this is why I don't like, us as like those of us that are Black people calling ourselves minorities, because other groups add their self to this. And when you look at who gets payouts for damage that has been done, it's usually not coming to us. It's usually coming to other groups. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail here. So you can see that he lobbied the Trump administration. Each suit outlines incidents on campus deemed to be anti-Semitic. The Brandeis Center suit discussed a spring 2023 seminar at Harvard Kennedy School. The complaint alleged that Hauser, senior lecturer in leadership, organizing, and civil society, Marshall Gantz, pressured 3 Israeli students to abandon a project about Israeli Jewish democracy. The filing outlines the social and academic consequences the students who were part of the suit faced for continuing their project. In June of 2023, an independent investigator hired by HKS agreed there was sufficient evidence that Gantz discriminated against these 3 students based on their ethnic identities. So let's go down to here. They are using, and this is important, the lawsuits claim that Harvard violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 by not sufficiently protecting its Jewish and Israeli students. Boy, I tell you, this is so frustrating. There's so many things I want to say that I can't say on here. The U.S. Department investigated and reached settlements with several other universities found to have violated it in the handling of the protests in the wake of October 2023, and et cetera. Okay, so what we have here is that this is now another attack on free speech. Because when you see what Harvard settled, if it were me, I would not want to work at Harvard. I would not want to be a student at Harvard. Tell your kids don't go to Harvard. If you're a parent, tell your children do not go to Harvard University. Tell them MIT the same way. MIT is trying to expel these 2 students also as well. It's so much crazy stuff that's going on, you guys. I'm telling you, these institutions are very, very sus. So let's see what's happening. The settlement terms. Harvard will introduce new processes. Let me make this a little bit larger. Thanks. Harvard will introduce new processes, okay, building on measures it has implemented over the past year. Annual reporting for the next 5 years. The director of Harvard's Office for Community Conduct will publish an annual report that covers Harvard's response to discrimination or harassment based on Title VI protected traits. Academic Symposium and Israel Partnership. The university will provide additional resources to the study of anti-Semitism, including a yearly academic symposium on the topic and unusual intellectual commitment, not specifically tied to any particular department or academic program. At least once a year, the university will reaffirm that anti-Semitism will not be tolerated at Harvard. So it says here as well, the Brandeis Center settlement further announces that Harvard will establish an official partnership with a university in Israel, provide an opportunity for the Brandeis Center to host a variety of events on campus, and invite 3 HKS alumni to organize and host an on-campus event. So here's something I want to point out to people. I don't see this happen for any other group. When Black students are threatened, harassed, intimidated on campus, none of this stuff happens. And I know I worked at universities for over 10 years. I don't see these universities bend over backwards to help Black students like this at all. At all. Including Harvard. Now we get to the definition. The definition of anti-Semitism. Notably, Harvard will adopt the iHRA definition of anti-Semitism. This is one of the most dangerous things that comes out of this. I don't know what happened. It just moved up somehow. Okay, here we go. One of the most dangerous things. It reads as follows. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property towards Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. Okay, but here's the part that a lot of people did not look at. This definition includes examples, and this is where the free speech is most threatened. The iHRA definition contains examples that are now part of Harvard's own definition. Ladies and gentlemen, take notes on this, okay? Grab some popcorn. These are what you cannot do. Accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. 2, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor. Do you guys see, by the way, this was the definition that AOC voted for in Congress. Do you guys see why this definition is so dangerous? Okay, let's continue. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, you can't criticize the state of Israel. You see what I'm saying? You see what they're doing with this? applying double standards by requiring Israel a behavior not expected of, demanded of any other democratic nation. First of all, from last I checked, Israel doesn't have a constitution. This one here, drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis. Everybody see this? You see where this is going? Holding Jews collectively responsible for actions of the state of Israel. So what Harvard is doing is they are basically saying you cannot criticize the state of Israel. And I will imagine some of these other universities are going to adopt this. Probably also Columbia. Don't be surprised if MIT adopts it as well. You cannot criticize the state of Israel. And if they want to talk about the behavior of the Nazis, et cetera, drawing comparisons, technically you can't say that Israel's committing genocide either. Oh. Harvard University. This is incredibly dangerous. Black people don't go to Harvard. Actually, any of you don't go to Harvard, but especially Black people, because they really don't give a damn about you. You see how they could come in? You see how these networks were able to move? All it took was one billionaire. Bill Ackman stepped in and everything started to change. That is the danger of billionaire power. That is also the danger of Zionism. Jason, who was on the show recently for one of the panels, he made a short about this. He's a student at Harvard Law School. Listen to what Jason said.
Harvard just became the latest institution to roll over for the Trump administration. This week, they settled an anti-Semitism lawsuit brought by a group of Jewish students who alleged that the university tolerated widespread anti-Semitism after October 7th. Now, let's be clear, this wasn't a slam dunk case by any means. Conflating every criticism of Israel, no matter how legitimate or harmless, with anti-Semitism at a university, a place meant for probing the messiest moral and political issues of our time, yeah, not exactly a bulletproof legal argument. But Harvard settled anyway. I'm sure this had everything to do with Trump's post-election promise to go to war with, quote, woke universities, seize their endowments to pay reparations to white people. For what exactly? Your guess is as good as mine. At least Harvard is in good company among the sellouts. First it was Disney, then Paramount, and now Harvard. Because apparently fighting fascism is a lot harder than embracing it, especially when you're more devoted to your money than your country. Harvard just became the latest institution to roll over for the Trump administration.
This is very scary, you guys. It's very scary. Now, I think it would have happened if Kamala won too, because the billionaires are the ones that really got involved in this. Glenn Greenwald came in here and said Harvard's new definition of anti-Semitism, the same enacted by the bipartisan House, is an assault on free speech. It outlaws as hate speech numerous criticisms of Israel. But because so many conservatives have a glaring Israel exception to their principles, few object. So this is my message here to the conservatives. Here's my message to you. If you're pro free speech, you should be against what Harvard is doing. Because this exception that this country has for Israel is absolutely insane. This is ridiculous. Because they don't hold Israel accountable, they can do whatever they want to do. And by the way, I want to remind people, the Bible is not the law of the land. And I see a lot of people on social media saying, well, in the Bible, it says that they're supposed to have, the Bible is not the law of the land. And second of all, I grew up in the church. The Bible does not say that these European settlers are supposed to be there in the Holy Land. Okay, stop. People act like we have not seen indigenous people be pushed off their damn land before. People act like we never saw this. It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. The Bible also doesn't say you're supposed to genocide people to get there either. And what kills me, and for Black people, who a lot of us grew up in the Black church, you know better. Can't believe people will go along with this bullshit. It goes even further here with Harvard Medical School. Now, this is freaking insane. Shout out to Dallas Duncan. Harvard Medical School cancels an optional session for students to hear from evacuated Gazan patients because it is one-sided. What is the other side? I kid you not. Do you see what's happening here? Harvard Medical School cancels class session with Gazan patients, calling it one-sided. So in reverse, what we're going to have here, ladies and gentlemen, is you are going to see more discrimination towards Arab Americans. They're already starting. Harvard Medical School. What happened to do no harm? No. Not do no harm. Max Blumenthal says, Harvard doesn't want to hear from Gaza genocide survivors, but it had no problem hiring former Israeli Army Chief of Staff Dan Hulitz, who oversaw the bombardment of Gaza and Lebanon at its business school. Let me pull this up here. See this one? Actually, you can see it better this way. Wanted for crimes of war. Everybody see this? Dan Hulitz, currently at large, last seen Harvard Business School, May 2007. Ordered the indiscriminate bombing of Lebanon last summer, killing over 1,000 civilians. So let me explain something to you guys real quick. Harvard still hasn't paid the reparations that they were supposed to pay. Did you know that Harvard professors owned slaves? How many people knew this? Harvard professors owned slaves. They had agreed at one point, we are going to, this is the amount of reparations that we should, owe, etc. They never paid it. Never paid it. In fact, I believe I have this article here. I'll go ahead and bring it up on the screen because a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but it's another debt that is owed. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. Got it. So I shared it on X so people can see, right? People don't want to talk about this. Slavery was an integral, this came from Al Jazeera, the quote, slavery was an integral part of life at Harvard between 1636 and 1783. Harvard faculty and leaders enslaved more than 70 Black and Indigenous people during that time frame. My question was, did Harvard pay cash reparations? We can go on now here. This was me retweeting this. Harvard University announced that it reached a settlement with Jewish students who filed a lawsuit against institution, yada, yada. As part of the settlement, the university will pay the students an undisclosed amount in compensation and adopt the definition that I just told you about. So they're going to pay them, right? Where is the payment, Harvard, ladies and gentlemen? Where is the payment to the descendants of slavery that you owe, Harvard? Harvard President Lawrence Bacow said in an email that a university governing board had authorized $100 million for implementation with some funds held in an endowment. Did they put cash in hand? No. So let's not also forget that Harvard University practiced eugenics. This is not a place that has their hands cleaned. And this is not a place that has been kind to people who are descendants of slavery. So my thing is, Harvard, when are you going to cut the damn check for the descendants of slavery? This is why Black people, you have to stop calling yourself a minority. Stop calling yourself a person of color. Anybody can be a minority now. Do you see what is happening here? Once other groups are added to it, our wants, our needs are pushed to the bottom of the list, or they're removed from the list completely. We are always at the bottom and ignored. So my thing to Harvard is, you guys got some things to answer about the eugenics issue. You guys owe descendants of slavery reparations, but now they're trying to silence your speech You see who they deliver for and who they don't. And I don't need to be a professor. I don't need to have a PhD to have damn common sense. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you, Perry. Harvard does not care about, we'll say, Jewish people. It cares about the rich ones and Zionists. The Oracle says it makes no sense. The criticism of another nation is not anti-Semitism against an individual. It's crazy. Like, you guys, I'm telling you, this is one of the biggest free speech issues. This is why I butt heads last time when Matt Taibbi came on here, because he said he didn't want to talk about Gaza. And I said, you talking about censorship, but you won't talk about this. This is one of the biggest censorship issues right now, is this issue. So I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on right now. Put that shit to the side and focus on the fact that this is a violation of free speech. It's crazy. Red Banana, what about free speech? There you go. Thanks, none of your business. Solution is to claim we are all Jewish, and that therefore there can be no longer demonstrate against us. Get local non-Zionists to go along. I don't think that works. None of your business. Susanna, if we don't remove Zionism from the U.S. government, we are finished. Thank you. And Focus. They're the only group with immense systemic power that also enjoys minority status. Yet, if you notice, you are right-wing racist. Black Americans have no power. And we haven't been paid any reparations. But yet when we bring this up, people say we're being divisive. Every other group can fight for what they want or need for their people. But the moment that Black Americans do it, we're divisive. Be wary of people that use that term. When Black people, we don't even say marginalized, when Black people are trying to fight for what they're owed. All right. Smash the like. And we're going to the last story. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going down. It's going down. There was a shooting in Nashville, Tennessee at a school called Antioch School. And the shooter left a manifesto. Now, we're going to go through some of this. You can decide whether or not you believe this or not, or even some of it. But what's interesting is that one of the people he named in the manifesto, or he supposedly named in the manifesto, is Candace Owens. Let's go ahead and get into this. And it's really crazy how school shootings have just become normalized in this country. Very crazy. We're in troubling times.
Still unanswered tonight. Who, if anyone, knew about Henderson's plan? The manifesto does mention someone helping him write part of it. And Jared Holt, you just saw there, says extremists in online communities identified him as the shooter before police did. Again, as we've mentioned, the teen shooter left behind a lengthy diary, giving even more insight into his thoughts leading up to the shooting. Now News Channel 5 investigates reporter Levi Ismail went through page by page and tells us what he found.
It's the first 4 words of a more than 288-page diary, but it sets the tone for everything you read after. Those words, quote, "I'm burning with hate." From October of last year to the day he carried out his attack at Antioch High School, 17-year-old Solomon Henderson filled these pages with graphic images, Nazi symbols, and plans to carry out an attack. Henderson...
Pause. So, if this is the case, this is someone who was anti-Black, someone that didn't like their self, right? I was very surprised when I saw the picture of the shooter, because for, those of you that don't know, we don't really do this. Black people, we don't really get down like that. So I was very surprised when I saw that. Very young, but apparently did not like himself. Supposedly. Remember, he's not alive to tell his story. Let's listen to a little bit more.
Obsessed over mass killers around the world and declared that he too intends on doing something to kill at least 10 people. But how does this young man go from active high school student to active shooter?
If we just look at it broadly, a lot of people that have carried out these sort of acts have felt othered.
Lauren Ruth Martin is a licensed therapist with novel counseling in Franklin.
We could go, scientifically for a minute. Our brains aren't fully developed when we're 17. Our brains are actually on fire. And so not a lot makes sense, and decision-making is altered.
Martin says this is not about trying to humanize someone responsible for committing a horrible crime, but...
Pause here for a second. Thank you, La Senora. It's called Antaka, not Antioch. Okay. There was a church my mom used to go to called Antioch, and it was spelled that way. So that's why I thought it was Antioch. Sorry. Thank you. Click says, hold up, something isn't right here. Yeah. This one's a little, I don't know. It's a little weird to me. A little weird to me. And again, of course, he's not alive, so we'll never know, but it looked like he had a military uniform on. He was in high school, so I'm assuming maybe he was a part of ROTC. Very young. I just don't understand this at all. Part of me wonders, was it a mental health issue? I don't know. I don't understand it. But the part that's really weird to me is him naming Candace Owens. That's the part to me that's really weird.
Understanding how we got here. Henderson, by his own admission, fought with his parents and even wrote in his diary about killing them at one point. Struggles with his self-image and resentment over minorities were only amplified once Henderson found community and a sense of belonging with white supremacy groups online.
So, see, this is why anti-blackness is not good, right? But it still seems weird to me that he would go to that level of it. The story to me just never made any sense. And this is why I didn't cover it the other day, because I was like, let me look into this a little bit more. It seems weird, right? And don't get me wrong, there are people who do hate themselves. There are people who do hate their own race. That is a thing. You can find black people that don't like black people, right? But he went to the extent of apparently joining white supremacist chat groups as well.
It's a perfect storm. In online communities, you can also access those in a private way. You get to be the person that you want to project out there online without anybody truly questioning it.
Henderson often wrote things like, quote, "I wish I was white. Self-hating N-word award goes to," with a picture of his eyes.
If we just focus on that idea of being uncomfortable in your own skin, can you imagine how helpless that must feel? Because you literally can't change that.
Another photo appeared to show Henderson in whiteface, but all while this self-hatred is happening, Henderson continues to plan out his attack. He details instructions on how to make bombs and even bought supplies. He then wrote that it made sense to attack during lunch and specifically made note of days when he expected there to be more people of color around.
So he wanted to go after other people of color. My question is, where did the hate come from? Where are the parents? They said he hated his parents. Why? Where does he get that from? I mean, this isn't something, listen, a child isn't born that way. A child isn't, I feel like that is learned behavior. So where did that come from? You know what Michael Jackson said? Michael Jackson said that his father used to tell him, "God, you have such a big, ugly nose." Michael Jackson said that in an interview. And apparently that must have stuck with Michael Jackson pretty much his whole life, because he continued to have like plastic surgery, that type of thing. So why did he hate his parents? What did the parents do? How were the parents? How did they treat him? Does everybody get what I'm getting at? Yeah, you're right. PB World said MJ's dad was toxic. He was. Like, so where does it come from? Angelique, there are quite a few POC Black people with self-hate problems, so this doesn't surprise me. I don't know any of them, but this is interesting.
Just days before the shooting, Henderson began to spiral. He wrote, "I'm slipping," and talked about being nervous, scared, and excited at the same time. Henderson posted a final selfie with the caption, 4 hours to go.
And of course, we know what he went on to do there, right? He went in and killed, I think there's 2 kids that are now dead. This whole thing to me, and I still ask, like, at that age, was this a mental health issue, right? Was it depression? Was it anxiety? We don't know. We may never know, right? But what's weird by this, the way that this narrative kind of played out is kind of strange to me, because this part right here, Nashville shooter Manifesto reveals he was inspired by Hitler and Candace Owens. And there's others that are mentioned as well. The Nashville school shooter allegedly wrote that his warped ideology was inspired by Candace Owens before he opened fire on 2 classmates and turned the gun on himself. So he fatally shot Jocelyn Correa Escalante, 16, and injured another student before taking his own life. And it talks about the horror inside the school. Much of the writing center on the gunman being ashamed to be Black and praise the work of Hitler and Nazis. Under one section headed, "Is there particular groups or people that radicalized you the most?" Political commentator Owens is name checked alongside far-right influencer Nick Fuentes and YouTuber Mr. Beast. So this is a weird combo here. I mean, Mr. Beast doesn't do the same type of content that Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes does. So very weird there. A little bit strange, right? Okay. I don't know why he would have been interested in listening to Nick Fuentes. I just don't, I don't understand that. But the Candace Owens part is the part where some people may say, well, maybe it's some of the things that Candace Owens said about Black people that appealed to him. Maybe. It says Candace Owens has influenced me above all. Each time she spoke, I was stunned by her insights and her own views, helped push me further and further into the belief of violence over the Jewish question, the manifesto reads. And this is where I have questions, right? And Candace did respond to this. I'll show you this as well. See this part right here? Okay. So we'll come back. It is truly sickening that people would use the death of a young 16-year-old girl to try to quickly score political points rather than to responsibly make sure that what they are sharing is accurate. So listen to this. Regarding the alleged manifesto, it is an obvious troll. How can you tell? Because the deranged individual plagiarized the exact same language from the Christchurch, New Zealand manifesto, combined with other manifestos and writings freely available on the web. In essence, it is a plagiarized document. So you guys see this? It would take 4 seconds of adult thinking and or journalistic integrity to recognize this is a troll. On your left, you'll see the language from the alleged Christchurch manifesto from 2019. On your right, you'll see the leaked manifesto circulating today. So I'll come back to what she said here in a second. I just wanted to show you so you can see what she's talking about. So this is from the Christchurch. Yes, the person that has influenced me above all was Candace Owens. Each time she spoke, I was stunned by her insights, and her own views helped push me further and further into the belief of violence over meekness. That was the Christchurch shooter manifesto. And then here's the one that I just read to you briefly. Candace Owens have influenced me above all else. So do you see what's happening here? So here's my guess, and we'll come back to this and we'll go back to what Candace is saying here, right? It feels very weird to me, and it seems like to me it is troll-like. That's what it seems like to me, because why would you copy what someone else said unless you were trying to send some type of a message, or unless someone wanted you to send that type of a message? Remember, Candace Owens just recently got, not too long ago, just got the Anti-Semitism of the Year award. Remember that? But now I noticed something different about these two pieces, if you pay attention. The first one here from the Christchurch Manifesto, it says, influenced me above all else, Candace Owens. Each time she spoke, I was stunned by her insights, her views, blah, blah, blah. And on his manifesto, it says, Candace Owens has influenced me above all. Each time she spoke, I was stunned by her views, helped push me further and further into the belief of violence over the Jewish question. So you see this? Now they've added Jewish people to it. I don't see that in this part here from the Christchurch Manifesto. It almost kind of seems like, and this is just my guess, it almost kind of seems like that part of the manifesto kind of seems like a little hit job there on Candace Owens. That's what it seems like. Seems kind of weird. And you don't have to like Candace Owens, but she has a point. Now, this part here, it says Owens is a right-wing commentator who has been accused of downplaying the Holocaust. You see where the narrative is going with this? She was previously denied a visa to enter Australia over her comments about Muslims, Jews, and her capacity to invite discord. Moments before Henderson struck, he posted chilling warnings about his plans, writing, "Today is a good day to die." So does everybody see what they just did there? Do you see how they went from, he said that she influenced him in the manifesto, to Candace has been downplaying the Holocaust and stuff like that? You see how they went along with that narrative? So it fits all together. It's packaged nice and neat. So just think about that. Think about how she's been attacked by Rabbi Shmuley, all these people that came after her. Think about that. Remember how Zionists came after Bree, to the point where Bree lost her job on the Hill Rising. It's called a coordinated effort. So we are not here to say that he did not kill those kids at the school. That is not what we're here to say. What we are here to say is the manifesto seems troll-like, obviously. And we also don't know who put him up to it. Questions have to be asked. And that's how I would say it. That's how I would say to look into this. It's also showing something else I want to bring to this part here. So they have a picture of Candace here. A manifesto believed to have been penned by Henderson states that he was inspired by Candace Owens. So you see what they're doing here. So, okie dokie. January 2025. How many of these incidents we have already, right? We're going into the new year. We have a new presidential administration. And then we have the attack in New Orleans, right? We see the New York Post reporter walk into his house and say, and there's the Quran right there, just left open, which apparently Muslims do not do. Just leave it open, wide open like that. So there was that. How convenient. They said that he had joined ISIS or whatever. There was that whole jazz. So, and they're like, oh no, there's going to be, here's another radicalized person of Islam. Right. OK, then you had the guy who apparently tried to blow up an APAC building or whatever in Florida that apparently had moved and wasn't at that location anymore. This is all in January. Now you got this manifesto here, which is all of a sudden saying, well, Candace Owens inspired me, and the dude's doing a not black kid doing like a Nazi. Come on, man. Just put all these things together, guys. Put all these things together. Come on, let's wake up. Let's wake up and see what's really happening. It seems like there's a coordinated effort here to try to make it seem like there is an increase or a large increase of attacks on those who are Jewish, and that they indeed are not safe in this country. That's what it seems like to me. Because Sabby was not born yesterday, and people still have a lot of sympathy for the Palestinian people, and that hasn't changed. So Israel has no other way to try to beat the narrative. So you see what's happening now, right? So to me, I don't know, man. Here's one of the girls that was killed. This is really just very sad. This country is so violent, and he did post on Blue Sky. I guess these were his last posts. He said, one said, today seems like a good day to die. Another one said, I thought someone had found out when I got called to the office, but it was just a probation officer. Another one says, we're good. Everything will be going scheduled. So that was all on Blue Sky. This part too. The writings also cite Kanye West and state that the gunman prepared for the shooting by playing violent video games and parroted parts of other famous killer manifestos. So, of course, and now they bring up Kanye West, right? Right. So just put all the pieces together. Now, all of a sudden, come on now. Regarding the alleged manifesto, it is an obvious troll. This is what Candace wrote. And then it goes on to say here, the Mr. Beast part to me doesn't make any sense. It says, it's also explained why this individual, despite numerous accounts, never followed me or Mr. Beast on any of his socials. We can get to that part here where Candace finishes up what she was saying. She said, that is how it is plausible that both me and Mr. Beast, who clearly do not share the same politics, wind up once again in a manifesto. It also explains why this individual, despite his numerous accounts, never followed me or Mr. Beast on any of his socials. This is a deranged troll that is at least in part due to the death of journalism. Copycats know that they can gain traction by just mentioning what they perceive to be big names because the media will push those names for clicks. I will have more to say on my show tomorrow as I copied all the relevant documents and social accounts. So do you see what has happened? This is why I was saying interesting, right? But a lot of people fell for it. A lot of people saw this and just fell for it. I'm like, come on, guys. You don't think this is weird? You don't think that this is strange? So once again, to me, it seems like a Zionist attack to try to, again, take down her. Kanye, who is mentioned as well. I mean, come on. This game is so old. So old. The sad part is too many people believed it. LPA Film said, yep, can't believe I'm agreeing with Candace. I know, like, she's right about this. Like, it just, and people really ran with it too. Really ran with it. Ladies and gentlemen, people will pull out all the stops sometimes. All the stops. And this is another example. It is very sad that the kids at that school lost their lives. And I am actually more concerned about the fact that this type of violence is normalized in this country now. People don't end up in shock and awe anymore at school shootings the way that they used to when I was growing up. And that is very concerning to me. Very concerning. Miss Kiwi, This is a lie. This has CIA, Mossad, MK Ultra written all over it. They're trying to get ride those YouTuber and see Candace Owens off the air. Only one they left out was Andrew Tate and the Tate brothers. There you go. Yep. Thank you, Sparky. F Israel. Thank you, Dre Harden. It's 3-card Molly. They morph into a religion or a government or ethnicity. You can't beat such a moving target. That's a good point. Skylar said, meet me at the mall. It's going down. Meet me at the club. It's going down. Meet me at the trap. It's going down. Everywhere you see me, when you see me go down. Verse number 2. Do the damn thing. That used to be the song. Thank you, Sparky. Anytime someone says Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. U.S. missionary John Sheehan. Thanks, Pink Diamond. I'm in the medical field. Lots of Zionists run and fund medical organizations. The rest of us must be silent or we lose our jobs. It makes me sick. Yeah, man, this is like holding people hostage. This is not cool. Thanks, John. Sorry to get off topic, but what movies do you think are better than the book? For me, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow and Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame. Probably pissed off fans of the book. LOL. Jurassic, I think I said this before on the show, but Jurassic Park, the book is better than the movie. I had to read the book. It wasn't a choice. So that's why I had to read the book in school. Thank you, Dr. Harden. Don't believe that. They still haven't released the Nashville school shooter manifesto for some strange reason AIPAC sent him. Thanks, Cynical. U.S. Gov is going to use prisoners to farm the land. Thanks, Jasmine. He could have had abusive, colorist people in his family. People in mine are like that, and I refuse to meet them because they hurt my mother this way. Thanks, David. Create anti-Semitism to excuse genocidal behavior. There you go. Thanks, Sparky. MK Ultra, or maybe he was on an SSIR. And thank you, Dre. Candace is right very often. Thank you for that. Okay. Can we get the tip on, I think that's Rumble? Yeah. Thanks, RB. This is definitely an MK Ultra operation. His CIA handlers got a big bonus for this one. I mean, it's so like obvious, dude. This one was bad. Thanks, Roger. Let them have their elite institutions. SAB, working and low income class, especially Freedman, shouldn't be trying to get into these elite institutions anyway. Any black person I hear coming out of Harvard, give a side eye because understand they're already compromised. And let's stop holding these Ivy League to such a high status and instead make them pariahs in society. Zoomers have been deemed the tool. Thank you for this as well. Oh, the tool belt generation, as they're skipping college and going into the vocal trades after seeing generations before them being conned by colleges and the government to go to college, just come out with mountains of debt, getting a job that has nothing to do with what they majored in, a paycheck below cost of living just for the government to not forgive their debt. Other than that, if you insist on going to college, then my suggestion is for Zoomers, especially Black, to either attend HBCU, just stay out of that fraternity, sorority, boule D9, because their origins lie in wealthy Zionists providing the money that started Black frats and sororities as a way to control us via the talented 10 theory. That's just going to cause division in our community anyway. Bingo. Thank you for saying that. 2, get a degree from a government institution. Your free speech is guaranteed. And thanks for this one. By the U.S. and state constitution, study abroad for free. Some countries will even pay you. While you're at it, you'll get some culture, experience free quality and reliable healthcare, worker-friendly policies, a general welfare system, fully financed and high-speed internet and rail. Also, Candy O, I used to think she hates Black people until I realized after I seen a video of her that she is partial to Caribbean. when someone asked her to call out Rihanna and Nicki Minaj on something, because even though she's half Freedman, she embraces her Caribbean side and doesn't feel right going after them. That opened my eyes. She don't hate all Black people, just the unwritten rule, as Godfrey, who is Nigerian, said, that to be American means coming here, dumping on us, as said here. Thank you for that. And thank you, Dave B. requesting more interviews, direct coverage of workers working poor, like the railroad worker interviews, the Waffle House worker a while back, those guys. So the railroad workers, from what I understand, are not conducting interviews. I was trying to see that. Sorry. The railroad workers, from what I understand, are not conducting interviews. It's hard to get interviews for people working at the Waffle House because some of those people are prisoners or ex-cons, and there's issues with that. I know this because I tried to get interviews at Waffle House before, so Waffle House is tricky. But we'll be doing more on the ground stuff when it's not as cold. Yeah, because it's very cold, and that's when I usually get back to more the on the ground stuff like that. So yeah, cool. All right, guys, that is it for me, fam. It's going down. Verse number 2, do the damn thing. Boom, boom, boom. You guys know that song? Meet me at the mall. It's going down. Meet me at the club. It's going down. Meet me at the trap. Did I say it right? No. Meet me at the trap. It's going down. Everywhere you meet me, when you meet me, go down. I wonder what happened to that guy. All right, guys, that's it for me. Have a good night. Keep up the fight. It's going down.